Put your hands behind your back, okay?
How am I trespass banned?
There's multiple reports about you.
As we know, there wasn't multiple reports of me being told to leave.
I have a whole file. You see it, Sean Reyes?
The police department, I mean, they did have a file with your name on it, had a plan here.
So you already have statements already written out?
Okay, yeah. Marching orders.
That this is how we're going to get him.
Hey, what's up guys? Long Island Audit here, back again with another video. We the people have done it yet again. We have defeated the corrupt and tyrannical Nassau County District Attorney's Office, as well as Police Commissioner Patrick Psycho Ryder. None of this would have been possible without my good friend and amazing attorney, Jacob Uriel. Let's bring him in now. Hey, Jacob, thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure to be here, Sean.
Before we get into your breakdown and your legal analysis of exactly what happened in this case, I want to remind our audience exactly which unlawful arrest we're talking about, because we're 3-0, so there's been 3 of them, but this is the most recent one, so let's take a look back and refresh our memory.
Put your hands behind your back, okay?
How am I trespass banned?
There's multiple reports about you.
Okay, please put your hands behind your back.
How? I'm not resisting.
Do you have anything on you that could poke a friction?
I have nothing that can hurt you.
Thank you so much.
Give me the camera. They have a whole file. You see it, Sean Reyes? Okay.
I was mixed up at first.
So I'm not being arrested for
You're being
trespassing.
arrested for that particular code.
So you already have statements already written out?
Okay, yeah. Marching orders.
So you're aware that your police commissioner was arrested for police brutality, official misconduct, and perjury?
No.
You tell Ryder I said hi.
I talked to him, I will.
You guys can't take off the handcuffs? I'm in a jail cell. Why do the handcuffs still need to be on?
Listen, this is above my head.
All right, Jacob, now that we have refreshed everyone's memory on the incident in question, let's break it down legally. So there was a court hearing set for February 6th. On that court date, all of the charges against me were dismissed for illegal impediment. That's the contempt of court, Class A misdemeanor. That is the criminal trespass, a Class C misdemeanor, as well as the trespass violation. So why is it that you think that it was dismissed? And it was dismissed on consent of the Nassau County District Attorney. They agreed to dismiss the charges against me. That doesn't sound like the Nassau County District Attorney that I know, especially when they have Patrick Psycho Ryder, the police commissioner of Nassau County, pulling all the strings from behind the scenes. So what do you think happened?
Well, first of all, I think it's important to know why we were scheduled for court that day. The purpose of the court appearance was to set a motion schedule. On the last court date, the government, the DA's office, had sent over the discovery. And then the judge gave everybody a few weeks to review the discovery to prepare for motions. Now, I had told the judge that it was my intention to file a motion to dismiss. Obviously, I told the DA also that it was our intention to file a motion to dismiss. So she had adjourned it for a few weeks to look at discovery, so everybody familiarized themselves with the discovery. And then to set what's called the motion schedule. And if you don't know what that means, it basically means where the judge will say, okay, Mr. Uriel, you've got to get your motion in by this date. ADA, you've got to respond by this date. I'll have a decision by this date, and we'll come back to court on that date, right? That's the motion schedule. So that's what we're there for. And, you know, the DA's office said, well, you know what? We're going to agree to dismiss it based on their belief that there is a legal impediment to conviction. That's what they said. And who are we to say no to a dismissal? Especially for that reason.
Right. And funny thing to note is that I wasn't at the court date, and neither was Jacob. I was in the district court in the town of Brookhaven dealing with $75,000 in retaliatory fines. I'm going to be making a video on that coming shortly, so stay tuned to the channel.
So I was actually not in court also, as you know. I had a different case that I had to be at. So instead, I sent a colleague of mine, very good lawyer in Nassau County, David Adami. He went there, and he was simply going to reiterate that motion that I wanted. And they said, well, we're going to consent to dismiss it. So he called me up. We had a conference, and the case was dismissed.
Right. So the legal impediment, what is the legal impediment according to us? What is our position that the legal impediment is? Because a lot of our viewers are not going to understand why did the Nassau County, and I don't think we even really understand why the Nassau County District Attorney's Office agreed to dismiss the charges. But what is a legal impediment?
So in order to have the case dismissed, there's a specific law under the criminal procedure law that talks about different reasons you can dismiss a case. One of those reasons is called a jurisdictional or legal impediment. And really, jurisdiction doesn't apply in this case because jurisdiction would be for those of you who don't know, it's like if a crime happened in Queens County and then Nassau County arrested you, and then they tried to charge you in Nassau. That's a jurisdictional issue where the court enters. That's not right. This is Nassau. So the only other option is legal impediment. And every single time where we file our motions to dismiss, we mention that there's a legal impediment to prosecution. And what we say is, and this is, what our argument was probably going to be, I'm pretty sure it was going to be, is two things prevent prosecution here. One is the First Amendment to the United States Constitution, specifically freedom of press, freedom of speech. And two is the New York State Right to Monitor Act, which pretty much allows you without inhibition to film law enforcement in the course of their duties. So that's sort of our position on why the case should have been dismissed primarily, and why we've sought to dismiss all these cases. And that's the so they didn't specifically agree to the Constitution or the Right to Monitor Act, but they did agree to that reasoning, the legal impediment. So they may have had a different idea of what legal impediment means, but that's our position as to what it means.
Of course, that's our position, that the legal impediment would be the United States Constitution. You've wrote many motions for me in the past in Nassau County against the Nassau County District Attorney's Office, where you have cited that statute, and you have been referencing the Constitution, First Amendment, as well as the New York State Right to Monitor Act. So why is it that you think that the district attorney decided to dismiss this case on a legal impediment? Like, they might not agree with our legal impediment. We might not agree on what the legal impediment is, but they still dismissed it on consent, meaning that they agreed for the case to be dismissed. Why is it that you think that happened? That's not typical of Nassau County. They fight us to the very end, especially, again, when you're dealing with Patrick Psycho Ryder. They fight this all the way. So what made this case different, do you think?
Sure. And just as a reminder, we were there that day after having had a 2-week adjournment, or longer than 2 weeks, to look at the discovery. So my gut is telling me, and I can't speak for the DA's office, that they had a chance to look at the discovery. And they realized that, one, you were never told to leave, right? You can't have a trespass. Forget everything else, right? Everything else that we could talk about with the legality of the Constitution. If you were never asked to leave, or you were never served with a trespass notice, you can't be trespassed, right? So that's in any kind of building. So they didn't have the trespass charges. They just didn't. And the other part was that court order part. And you were never served with a court order. There was no court order given to you. So I think when they looked at the actual discovery and actually went through the case, I think they kind of realized they didn't even have the basics, and they just couldn't go forward. So I think that's why they dismissed it.
So what you're saying is that they didn't have the elements needed. And I mentioned that many times in the actual video of the audit. I was never trespassed, and I've never been told to leave. How am I being arrested for trespass? And he says there's multiple reports and everything else. As we know, there wasn't multiple reports of me being told to leave or anything of that nature. And again, I was never served with any sort of court order. So what you're basically saying is they had no case, and they realized they had no case. Again, we're not speaking for the Nassau County District Attorney, but that's our belief, is that I tend to agree with Jacob that they realized they had zero case whatsoever regarding any of the charges they had levied against me. So they decided to just go ahead and wave the white flag, be done with it, dismiss it on consent. Do you think, I thought this was very interesting, Jacob, during the court proceedings, we got a different judge in part 5 of the Nassau County District Court. She was very cordial to everyone, the DA's office, as well as both you and I. Very cordial, very respectful, seemed to be very critically thinking when it came to this case. And the judge had even mentioned, and I'm not saying this just because the judge dismissed my charges. I've been saying this since day one. Jacob, you know that. I've been saying this judge seems like a very fair judge, a very wise judge, and very respectful judge. And she had said in court, off the record, basically, as she's looking at the charges, she had told the district attorney something to the effect of, I really don't see the contempt charge. So when a judge does that, why does a judge do that? And is that typical for a judge to do that in court cases for people who don't really enter courtrooms? And do you think that played any part in the district attorney dismissing the case?
So I do think, part of a judge's job is to kind of mediate between the parties, right? And that's in any kind of case, civil or criminal. So it's not uncommon for a judge to give you their initial impression of the case, often encouraging a lawyer to go back and look at a case a little bit more carefully. So I think more than that, though, the contempt charge is something that's very near and dear to judges, right? Because what you're basically saying is you're violating a court order. So a judge is probably the best person to say, is this a court order or not? And the judge has a lot of interest, because look, and I'll tell you right now, if you ever violate an order of protection where a judge says stay away from your ex-wife or whatever, and you don't do that, you're in trouble, right? Because the judge is going to really hate that.
Call Jacob.
You're going to be taking it personally, right? Just like, and I hate to make the analogy, but if your kid does something that you're not happy with, okay, maybe you punish them. But if you told them not to do something, I told you, isn't it different, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, it is different.
Right.
And again, no judge ever told me not to do it.
Exactly. And that's, I think, where the judge is like, look, I never told him. I don't see anything in your allegations that any judge told him anything. And you're trying to, come before the court saying that you violated a court order. Who better but a judge to feel like that's not the appropriate charge? It's a very important charge to the whole workings of the judiciary. If you water down contempt, if you make it something it's not, then I think the judges lose. So I do think it was, and again, I can't get into anyone's mind. I'm just kind of telling you what my gut is telling me.
Right. And listen, Jacob, and that's actually a really interesting perspective that, contempt of court is something normally a judge finds you in contempt of court. The DA, people don't know this, the DA can charge you, as you've seen with me, they can charge you with contempt of court under certain circumstances. This is not one of them, obviously. And I think the judge saw that this wasn't one of those circumstances where you can charge somebody with contempt of court. And the judge was just trying to make it known that, listen, this doesn't seem right on its face based on the information that you provided to the court. You provided these charges. We've been saying this since arraignment. I said, it was my position. I was like, Jacob, we got to get this thing dismissed at arraignment. And you definitely tried your hardest to get it dismissed at arraignment. And that judge was like, he kind of hinted that he didn't see it either. He didn't say that, but you kind of got the feeling that he didn't really see it either. And he was just like, I'm just going to pass this off to the next judge. And then that judge recused themselves because they recused themselves in a previous case of mine. And we eventually landed on this judge that we have now. And again, very grateful, did a great job. Great public servant. I think she was very cordial. She was very respectful to me. Even I was in the courtroom for hours beforehand, and I saw the way she interacted with other defendants and other counsel, and I thought she did a great job. And again, not because she dismissed my case, because technically the DA agreed to dismiss my case. So yeah, she dismissed it, but the DA agreed to dismiss it based on everything we talked about already. They had no case. That's what it really comes down to. So Jacob, where do we go from here?
First of all, I'm thankful that the DA's office agreed to dismiss it without forcing a long and drawn out motion. But if I had to take a guess, though, I don't think the DA was ever really very excited about this case, right? They didn't try to do some weird ex parte discovery thing. They didn't seek 1,000 orders of protection against you, barred you from half of Nassau County, right? Right from the beginning.
It's a lot different this time. You're right.
It's a lot different right from the get-go. And, part of me feels like the police department, they did have a file with your name on it, had a plan here that this is how we're going to get him. I think the plan didn't go the way it was supposed to. I think the DA's office, and again, I'm just guessing here, had a clue right from the beginning that this was a weak case, waited to review the discovery, saw the body cam, saw that, again, they saw it on your video, but, maybe you edited it, maybe you're a wizard at changing things. They saw they saw what happened. And I think that, they made a decision that whatever the police department wanted here wasn't even an imaginary crime. There's just nothing that they could say. And I think they did the right thing. And I'm glad they dismissed it now instead of forcing a judge to make a decision, because really, as a prosecutor, if you don't think there's a case, you're supposed to drop it. That's
right. But knowing Nassau County, we've dealt with them before. It's our position that they should have dismissed all the cases that were brought against me, both unlawful arrests. But again, I do
the right thing.
All right. I am appreciative that they did the right thing. I think it's in their best interest to do the right thing, and it's their job. It is their obligation to do the right thing and uphold the law and uphold our constitutional rights. So that being said, I think that's, it's a great point that you made about there was not 8 order protections, stayaways against police officers and government officials this time. They didn't send you 2 big boxes of paper discovery because they didn't want the discovery on the internet. And apparently a court order wasn't good enough. The ex parte, there was a lot of funny business going on in the previous cases we had with the Nassau County District Attorney's Office. This one was more streamlined. It was very simple. It just seemed like, everything was going, normally. There was no extracurricular activities, right? This was just, okay, court date, motion schedule. And before we can even get the motion schedule, before you can even write a motion, they're agreeing to dismiss it, based on this legal impediment.
Sure this judge would have agreed to that kind of discovery rule. Honestly, just see.
Right. I don't think so either.
Yeah,
I don't think so either. But again, we don't know. But I don't think so either. I don't think she would have had ex parte meeting with them. I don't know. I don't think it's something that warrants that. But again, I appreciate the judge for doing the right thing and being, very respectful and professional throughout the whole proceedings. The district attorney, Dana, I know you watch, Dana Grossblatt, the deputy district attorney. It's never personal, Dana. We see each other a lot in court, and I always say hi to her. Never once ever personal. It's just, it's my freedom at stake here. And, I believe I'm engaging in constitutionally and statutory protected activity. I think that she listens to Patrick Ryder a little too much. That's my thing. I think that's what's going on here. Patrick Ryder, and I'm pretty sure I would love to be a fly in the wall in the police department headquarters when they figured out that the case got dismissed, because I was told by my sources that, Patrick Ryder was telling these people, hey, you messed up my arrest. You saw the file that they had. You heard the officer say, these are marching orders. This is above my head. He alluded to the whole time that this has nothing to do with me, man. I'm just listening to my bosses and arresting you for Title 22, whatever it says here on the paper. I thought it was a trespass. Again, it's ridiculous what happened. And hopefully they get held accountable. Now that the case has been dismissed, where do we go from here? I know you're dealing with a lot of other things. We have the Schenectady appeal we're dealing with. We have the Brooklyn appeal we're dealing with. But there is a statute of limitations on federal lawsuits. So where do we go from here?
Well, I think the next step is we have plenty of time on the statute of limitations. We wrap up some of the other appeal stuff that we're dealing with, as you mentioned, and then we sit down and we write a lawsuit.
Right. I mean, conspiracy. I would love for discovery in this, depositions. I think it's going to be a lot of fun deposing Patrick Ryder, deposing all these, police officers, getting the discovery, emails, whatever documentation. I recently found out, I don't know if I told you this, Jacob, I recently found out that I have a bolo in the Nassau County Police Department. They have a be on the lookout for Sean Paul Reyes with my picture on it regarding my recording. I found that out through somebody else's federal lawsuit that they have filed. So that was interesting to know. Apparently, some wanted guy or be on the lookout, some dangerous criminal. But definitely a federal lawsuit is on the way. Stay tuned to the channel. You won't want to miss it. Jacob, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you so much for being such a great advocate for me in the court. You've done an amazing job. We are 3-0 in Nassau County. We have beaten Brooklyn. We have a lot of wins together, but 3-0. Feel like Michael Jordan, when he did the first three-peat, we did it. It wasn't over emotion this time. They gave up, essentially. They conceded. But a win is a win, and I'll take it. And I couldn't have done it without you, Jacob. If you ever need any legal services, please contact Jacob Uriel. He has my full support and endorsement. He handles criminal cases in New York and New Jersey. Make sure to go look him up. Thank you, Jacob, again. I appreciate it.
Again, always a pleasure, Sean.
Thank you. All right, fellow Patriots, as always, none of these victories are possible without each and every one of your support. It's truly appreciated. We will continue to fight. We will never give up. I will be posting a video coming shortly on this channel regarding the $75,000 in retaliatory fines that the town of Brookhaven, the town that I was born and raised in, is leveling against me in retaliation for my First Amendment rights. So stay tuned to the channel. You won't want to miss it. As always, stay safe. God bless. I'll see you in the next video. Long Island Audit. Peace.